Hey everyone, I'm Joe. Today I'm going to be doing a book review of the Medusa Chronicles written by Baxter and Alastair Reynolds. This book was first published in 2016, which means at the time I am making this review in 2019, it is 3 years old. This was inspired by a short story called A Meeting with Medusa, written by Arthur C. Clarke and first published in 1971. This is a direct sequel and a continuation of the world and indeed the main character that Clarke created then, and this is a full-length novel, so it has the length to expand upon what Clarke created, and it does so in an interesting manner. The two authors share a certain writing style, but they also have drastically different ways of writing and viewpoints, so that combined with the ideas that were written in the 70s creates a very interesting book, I find, and I will talk about that shortly. But first I'll do a synopsis of the book, which starts off with the main point of view character called Commander Howard Falcon. In the short story, he is a dirigible pilot. He goes on a mission to Jupiter into the lower atmosphere and he explores. I have not read the short story, although I would like to at some future point. Although that is talked about and you get a very distinctive feel and idea of what went on in that story. So I personally don't feel as though you have to read the short story. It might be nice for added depth in certain areas, but it's relatively minor, I think, overall. But after that mission and after that short story ends, Howard Falcon has a really serious accident. He almost dies, and thanks to multiple experimental surgeries, they managed to save his life. However, in the process of doing so, he essentially becomes almost fully cybernetic. There is very little left physically of who he was. Obviously his brain is intact, his body not really there. He's almost completely a machine now, which works out in rather curious ways because, of course, being a machine means he can go in environments that a human couldn't without some quite significant gear. And of course he can keep being upgraded over the years, which means that his life can be much longer than most humans. The question of his possible sort of immortality comes up, because as long as technology is advancing at a certain rate, which it generally does, at least at this point in the book, then he could become essentially immortal, because they can just medically help the remains of his physical body, and obviously the technology of his body can keep being updated furthermore as well. So it's an interesting idea. Anyway, in the book he becomes essentially a cyborg, and over the years he starts encountering, gets into a situation where he becomes a sort of diplomat for humanity when the rise of artificial intelligence happens. Now this happens in a rather curious manner, and his interactions with the artificial intelligence is also rather curious, because of course he is human, but he's been this cyborg now for quite a long time. There's some other people, old time friends and such, don't quite seem in the same way, and indeed the AI robots, they seem slightly differently as well. So he's in a unique position where he's neither world and kind of both worlds at the same time. This can lead, and does lead, to him being the diplomat and sort of emissary for humanity with the rise of the AI nation, and the plot starts to go from there, because the AIs want more than what humanity created them for, which was just to do the work that we frankly didn't want to do, sort of dangerous stuff. But humanity still needs a lot of that work done because the way our technology and our society is gone. So how do we find a way around this? Is there a compromise that we can make? How Sheldon Falcon comes into play, and it's a curious one which I find interesting, and then the plot does go in somewhere interesting after this, but I'm not going to spoil any spoilers here. So the plot sounds possibly complex, but it's actually not. It's relatively straightforward. It goes along at a reasonable pace, and you can sort of predict in certain ways where the plot will go because you know his character. Because his character, he's developed in a rather interesting way because he's sort of lost a little bit of his humanity, but he's also gained a certain aspect of humanity that most people don't have because he's got this very long view which you can't normally have. Nobody can have apart from him. So he's in this unique position, and indeed he does use it, and indeed the writers use it to create a curious viewpoint that is both very, very long, but also very human and very sort of conflicted at times because he wants to be something that he's going into. It's about an evolution of his character, which is an interesting idea and one that I think is done quite well. And yes, there are little flaws here or there. You know, certain other characters are glossed over, but that's not really a major issue because he, after all, is the main character and he's the absolute main focus. All the other characters sort of come and go really, but it's Falcon who remains, and he's the main one, along with one or two other characters that help him along. So that glossing over of lighter characters, I think is perfectly okay. And indeed, that is done with some respects to the world building in the book, because certain aspects are delved into and described really well. Of course, Jupiter, where he goes again in the novel, is described well. Certain other environments where he goes to meet the AIs and discuss with them is described well. Earth is not really discussed. Again, you know, it's just Earth though, so it's, you know what to expect, of course. I mean, we happen to be living on it, so it's an interesting sort of combination of both light descriptions and heavier descriptions, and the way that Falcon interacts with these different environments is one that I enjoyed. One thing that I think is interesting is the writing style of the novel, because of course the short story was written in the very early 70s, and indeed this world was created in the 70s. So Baxter and Reynolds are writing based on a 70s short story. They are trying to sort of complement that, but they also want to expand upon it, and they're trying to find that balance between continuing the world and actually having it feel like a continuation, but they don't want to continue it too closely because then it will be a 70s writing style, which they don't want to do. They want to have something more than that. You can tell that distinctly. And as far as the two authors go, the overall book has a very strong feeling of Stephen Baxter's writing style throughout it. The way he describes people and environment and indeed scientific ideas is familiar, but it does not lack a certain distinctive vision from Alastair Reynolds as well. His ideas from other books and the way he introduces certain concepts is very distinctive as well. So that combination of the two authors is an interesting one, and one that I like because I do like both authors. Now overall, the book explores the meaning of life, not just the meaning of life, but a meaning of life. You know, there are multiple meanings for what life is and what life can be. This explores one of them, you know, about the evolution of what mankind is and what it could be if given a push, let's say. And it also explores what is other forms of life in comparison to humanity. You know, there is the AI. Is that life? Is it not? It talks about this and discusses it in a curious way, and I think it's one that I enjoyed and think is worth talking about. Overall, this is a really good book which I really enjoyed reading. It has a curious point of view and an interesting setting. The combination of the two authors writing together with their both contrasting and sometimes conflicting styles leads to some interesting results, and overall I would recommend this. If you are a fan of either author, then you will probably like it, and if you are a fan of something that exploration of what humanity is and what it could be, and with some hard science fiction lightly thrown in there for good measure, then you may like this. That said, that is it for this review. So if you have read this or you would like to, then please leave a comment and we can have a talk about it. All my social media links can be found in the description box below. That said, that is it for this review. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.